No. I mean, it's in the budget.
And it's the city.
Yeah, yeah. In almost all cases, a lot of the streetlights are DTEs because they're in the neighborhoods. They're the wooden pole streetlights. Some of them are ours that have notoriously been out in stretches of major street for miles that are out. I mean, I have a hole right now to a big water main and big, huge replacement program that's going on in Pullman's neighborhood, actually. And they have porta potties out in people's yards. They have the construction companies. They have driveways torn up. All of the intersections are torn out because they had to tunnel under them. And I'm like, what's the? I mean, every day Garland's sending me a water boil notice, and we're like, when's this project gonna ramp up? I mean, have you gone over there, Garland? It looks like a third world country over there. Everything is so torn up. There's mounds and mounds and mounds of shale and dirt and rocks and porta potties everywhere. I mean, big piles of fire hydrants because they're replacing them all, and they're doing all the water lines at the same time. Yeah. Yep. Right. Yeah, those are the big. Yeah. We I did put in for those lights. All those lights are between Johnson and.
The signs, the yard signs. Beautiful.
The lights are all either in and
Yeah, so
it is. Perfect.
this is for the station.
Thank you.
It's for the audience.
Hey, Lynette.
A lot of comments here from the audience. Thank you.
This ain't gonna stay. I guess I might as well take it off. All right. I guess you've got your hooks in me.
The guy went fishing Sunday, said he caught over 100 crabs up at Oakland, because it's no limit. Yeah, he said he and his friend caught 100 crabs up at Oakland Sunday. So you know. Oh, he may have. Huh? Call Miss Mary.
Good. How are you?
Okay. Prior, yeah. Okay. I'll call. What? When? Send me the email. We'll see. All right. Wanna know?
Hey, Veronica, how are you?
And don't be up into the government.
I'm fine, sir. How you doing? You have a good day?
Good. Yeah. Are we still on for?
We are. We
When
are.
we get out here, it's on my original line. How long do you think the tonight's meeting's gonna go?
They said to 12, but I'm hoping by 9.
Okay. It's a big difference. We'll see.
take it off flat.
Yes.
Off flat. Somebody else want to buy it.
We haven't. I don't think we have formal architectural general history, the general history.
778 University, which I thought we took off.
We might have. Do we not?
It's still there. We did earlier.
Oh, okay. Oh, perfect.
I remember something we did. But
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, one and all. This meeting of your Pontiac City Council is hereby called to order. Pop, pop, pop. It is Tuesday, April 12th, 2022. We are now called to order, and I'd like to recognize my colleague, the Honorable Kathleen James, for the delivery of this evening's invocation.
Let us bow our heads. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you this evening. Thank you for your presence with us here today. I thank you for everyone who is here today in the audience, and I thank you for those who are listening on television and different places. Father, we ask your blessing over this meeting today. We ask your blessings over the agenda, over all of the decisions that will be made, over each one of the council, over our mayor and deputy mayor and city hall on today, that we may make decisions that are pleasing to you, that are profitable for our city, O God. These blessings we ask in the name of Jesus, and we ask your blessings over all of the people who are here today, that God would bless us, that he will help us and continue to prosper us on the way that he is leading us. These blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll remain standing for a moment of silence.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. We remember those that our community has lost. In addition to the names we read, we welcome you to lift up the names in your hearts of those from your family and your neighborhood that our community has lost. Alfred Amador, Neva Bowman, Solomon Corley Jr., Chuck Elder, Minnie Fabi, Ruth Holland, 90 years young, Manuel Rueas, Robert Jenkins, 98 years young, Elder Alonzo Stewart Jr., 92 years young, Deacon Dennis Thompson Sr., Maria Antonia Tovar, and Michael Walker. Please join us with a moment of silence. Oh, and I'm sorry I didn't see the news, but President Pro Tem Carrington also shares we lift in our hearts and prayers those in New York who are a victim of violence that has happened today. Please join us for a moment of silence for all those names. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Harrington,
Present.
Goodman,
Present.
James,
Here,
McGinnis,
Present.
Nicholson,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Rutherford.
here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All members present and voting. Quorum is established. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Parker, seconded by Rutherford. That motion is before us. Could I please have a motion to amend the agenda which brings the resolutions number 6, 7, and 8, resolutions welcoming home George De Jesus, Melvin De Jesus, Gilbert Lee Pohl Jr., and moving that towards the beginning of the agenda after the approval of the consent agenda, and adding an additional city council resolution in the place where it came from on the agenda order, which is the resolution to approve the appointments to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Parker, seconded by Carrington, that we amend the agenda accordingly, so that way we bring up the three resolutions welcoming home our Pontiac citizens, and adding a resolution for the Zoning Board of Appeals appointments. Any discussion on those motions to amend the agenda? With that, hearing no further discussion, roll call on the motion to amend the agenda. Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are now at the main motion for approval of the agenda as amended. Are there any further amendments? Any further questions? Debate. Hearing no further discussion or amendments, the main motion before us is adoption of the agenda as amended. Roll call. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Oh, yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We'll now proceed accordingly. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make the motion.
Support Carrington.
Moved by Rutherford, seconded by Carrington. Not a debatable motion. Roll call on adoption and approval of the consent agenda. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are now at the Pontiac City Council resolution welcoming George DeJesus home. Is there a motion to approve this?
I make the motion.
Support by Carrington.
It's been moved by Rutherford, seconded by Carrington, that we adopt this resolution, which we will read presently. Whereas every resident of the city of Pontiac, Michigan has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and those rights should inherently include protection of Pontiac residents by the justice system at the municipal, state, and federal levels. Whereas Mr. George DeJesus, along with his brother Mr. Melvin DeJesus, were wrongfully convicted in 1997 of a crime that occurred in Pontiac, Michigan they did not commit, and sentenced to life in prison despite there being no DNA evidence linking them to the scene of that crime, and witnesses testified that the brothers were elsewhere when the crime was committed. Whereas Mr. DeJesus maintained his innocence and a growing number of advocates added their voices to the calls for his exoneration and release, but he had been confined to prison for 25 years and deprived of an excruciating number of years of freedom to live his life and be with his family. Whereas the Michigan State Attorney General's Office, the University of Michigan Innocence Clinic, and the Western Michigan University Cooley Law School Innocence Project pursued investigations that uncovered new evidence proving his and his brother's innocence and determining the true culprit. Whereas the sentence of Mr. DeJesus and his brother was vacated in March 2022, and now Mr. DeJesus has at long last been released from prison and is finally home in Pontiac. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council, in partnership with Pontiac Mayor Tim Greimel, hereby warmly welcomes Mr. George DeJesus home from his unjust incarceration. And further resolved, we express the community's heartbreak to Mr. DeJesus and his entire family for the intensely unjust steps that led to the loss of his freedom, the dismantling of his life, and the hurt to both his family and the family of the crime victim who was deprived of true justice for their tragic loss. And further resolved, the City Council calls upon the entire Pontiac community to extend their hands and their hearts to help welcome Mr. DeJesus and his brother home and to assist in their transition. And further resolved, we celebrate the work of the Western Michigan University Cooley Law School Innocence Project, University of Michigan Innocence Clinic, and the State Attorney General Conviction Integrity Unit for their leadership and advocacy in helping Mr. DeJesus restore his freedom, assisting him to prove his innocence, and assisting the late victim and her family determining the true culprit. Signed, all members of this Pontiac City Council on today's date, April 12th, 2022. Round of applause. So with this motion before us, we're going to welcome to the podium Pastor Terrence Devison, who helped bring this to the council's attention and advocate for these gentlemen, and also to the brothers. We can hear from them and others that want to help amplify their story, and then we will have comments and feedback from council and mayor. So with that, Pastor, if you can take the microphone and help center us in terms of what brought us here today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, and to the council of the great city of Pontiac. I want to thank you for this opportunity. My brother and I literally just got off the road from Chicago, and Mr. President, I've been texting these last few minutes, so thank you for this opportunity. We never saw this day coming, but this was something we wanted to work on for so long for these great men. Mr. Gilbert Poole, I thought I saw Gilbert. I'm not sure if he's here. Hey, Gil, come on, stand over here with us, man. Mr. Gilbert Poole, my good buddy, and then to the DeJesus brothers. But it started with Mr. Poole. We reached out a year or so ago, and we couldn't make any progress. And we're so thankful that we were able to make some calls, and you and I were able to get in touch. And I won't take the credit. I mean, maybe I initiated it, but I want to give the credit to you for making this day happen. In addition to your staff, the closure for Mr. Gilbert Poole and for the DeJesus brothers. You all have no idea to spend 34 years in prison and then 25 for a crime you didn't commit, and then to come home and to kind of still be treated a certain kind of way is something we can't imagine. But these are the feelings and the emotions that they have to go to. So, Mr. President, when you gave me the call on Friday and said that you were going to make this happen, those were the first calls that I made to the DeJesus brothers and to Mr. Poole, and it was just absolute closure. So again, Mr. Poole is standing next to me, but to the right of me is Mr. Ken Nixon, 16 years, crime he didn't commit. Behind me, the Attorney General brought this man home last year. This is Mr. Juwan Deering. So he's the these are the first and the second guys brought home. Third guys, I forget the order, from the State Attorney General's office, and we're so thankful for her and the work and for all that are involved. Glad to see George and Melvin. We've been arguing the last 2 days. It's so good to see you guys today. And then the ambassadors group do have, along with my wife, Dr. Devison, we've all been just kind of a great support staff to these men as they come home. But it's never easy, and it's never complete until we get the support of the community. The community means the world to these men. Just to be able now, after today, to walk down the street with their head up, we have no idea. So that's why I worked so hard to be in touch with you, and you worked hard to make this happen. So on the behalf of the ambassadors group, these great families, y'all should stand too, I guess, I don't know, but Mr. Bill Proctor, if it's okay, could I introduce just a few other people, and I'll take my seat. Mr. Bill Proctor, you all know him affectionately from Channel 7 Action News. I call him Uncle Bill. We're so thankful for him. Mr. Kevin Scott, if he's here, would you raise your hand? He's part of the ambassadors group. Mrs. Teresa Cargans, Mrs. Maxine Willis, a co-founder, my wife, Dr. Jeronique Devison, who is a principal here in Pontiac, my brother, Brian. Of course, we introduced these great men, and then I want to ask a lady to come and stand, actually two people to come and stand with me, if it's okay. I want to impose on her, Attorney Tracy Brame from the Western Michigan University Innocence Project. She's a director, and she was instrumental in helping George come home, and I think she had a hand in Gil as well. I'm not sure if you had any others on your team that are here. And then I also want to, if it's not asking too much, to ask Attorney Wolfgang Mueller if he would come and stand with us as well, please. David Moran, I've never met him, my first time. This is the man, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Moran from the U of M Innocence Project. What an honor to meet you, sir. Will you stand with us? So, Mr. President, am I missing anybody, you all? Rachel Harrington. Are you here? Part of the team at the Innocence Clinic helping to bring these men home. All right. Mr. President, I'm not sure. What was my next assignment from you to do?
We want to hear from Melvin and George and Gilbert, but Tracy, since she's immediately near you, if she wants to give some context to the Innocence Project and the work undertaken.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the floor. Thank you for allowing us to be here today. My name is Tracy Brame. I'm the director of the Western Michigan University Cooley Innocence Project, and we are actually celebrating 20 years of existence this year. We are a DNA and forensics-based clinic, meaning that we investigate cases that involve DNA evidence and, try to unearth new evidence to bring innocent people home. So I've been delighted to get to know George DeJesus and Gilbert Poole over the last few months, and I've only been with the project for a couple of years, so it's been just the joy of my life to see them come home in that time. So I know that, again, this means so much to them. They've had so much taken from them over the last couple of decades, but to at least be able to come home and get some recognition of what they've been through is very special. So again, thank you for allowing me to be here, and I will hand the mic over to whomever's next.
First, I want to thank God, because without him, it's not possible for anything to happen. And I leaned on him a lot during them 25 years. I want to thank the city council for welcoming us home and inviting us over here. I appreciate that. I want to thank everybody that showed up in support of us. I appreciate you guys driving all the way over here. Family, friends, fellow wrongful conviction guys, I appreciate you guys. Tracy, I appreciate you for showing up. Thank you. Dave Moran, thank you. Wolf, thank you guys. Pastor, Rev, I appreciate you. I have a lot to say, but I'm going to keep it short. The 25 years was hard, and I went through a lot of stuff during them years. But my family was huge, and they helped me through it. My mother, I know you guys seen her fighting for us and out on the community and talking to different people. She was huge in getting us out, and I want to thank her right now, because she deserves all praise. She done a lot, and I thank her all the time. I want to thank the organizations that helped us get out. The Innocence Project in Cooley, they did a lot. The Conviction Integrity Unit, the AG's office, they were instrumental. They moved mountains. And I like to recognize them for that. The Innocence Clinic had worked on our case since 2011, trying to free us. And they did a lot of work. There was a lot of hours put in trying to prove our innocence, and I appreciate them for that. And I just want to say thank you guys, and I appreciate you guys for welcoming us home.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melvin DeJesus. I'd like to thank the City Council for doing this for us. This is very appreciated by me and my brother. It's been a long journey, 25 years of just struggling, fighting, having in the back of your mind that you're never going to go home, but you still had to keep fighting just to see the light at the tunnel. And then the organizations that was behind us, the Michigan Innocence Clinic that stood by me, the Michigan Innocence Project, the Integrity Unit, all these organizations all together helping us. And it was still a fight until the day of March 22nd when we was free. My mother, lover, behind us all the way, we was down, she was up. She give us that encouragement. Keep going, keep fighting. You know, even if something happened to me, just keep fighting. And that's what made us just continue to fight. You know, give us that mindset of, man, we just got to keep going, and finally it's going to break. And we're here in front of you today. This is our third Tuesday. So it's been 3 weeks already. Me and my brother, we had our first meal was what?
Chicken and walks.
You know, I loved it. You know, I got a picture where I'm just holding all the food I can right in front of me. Loving it, you know. So from the bottom of my heart, my family, my brother, we appreciate this. And this means a lot to us for the city of Pontiac to recognize us and just that apology of what happened to us. Thank you.
My name is Gilbert Poole. 32 years ago, I was taken from my home in North Carolina and brought all the way up here to Michigan and put in prison for a crime I did not commit. It was a long journey trying to get myself out. The list of people that assisted me is longer than I could read off. We don't have the time for that, but I'm here to tell you that Cooley Law School stood with me for 18 years. And the Conviction Integrity Unit got involved. And I was eventually exonerated and released. My God. But after I got out, I was released May 26, 2021. But after I got out, I tried to go back to where they took me from, to North Carolina. And after 32 years, that place doesn't exist anymore. The places that I used to travel down the roads, those roads don't exist. There's been buildings built up where I used to play, and they're so old they've been torn down again while I've been gone. So I came back to Michigan because these people that have been standing by me, all these people surrounded me here, these people are the ones that stood by me and got me out. So this is my new home and my new family. So it means a lot to me for the city to acknowledge that I was wrongfully convicted and welcome me home, because I have to walk the streets and hold my head up high, and I need to know that I have the support of the community, and this goes a long way. Thank you very much.
Good evening, gentlemen and women. I just want to say to the City Council and everyone here, thank you. Thanks be to God. I spent 15 and a half years, and I can't imagine the pain of these brothers and Mr. Poole, but I'm here to support you, and I'm always be here. So I just wanted to say, thank you again for acknowledging me and others and all of the people that are wrongfully convicted. Thank you.
Good evening, councilmen, councilwomen. Thank you for having us here. I'm Wolf Mueller. I've been honored enough to be retained by many of these folks, including 3 of the 4 here, to help them in my way to get back on their feet, to obtain compensation for them for the wrong. You know, I heard a saying, prison is where hope goes to die. And if you can imagine one day in prison in a hellhole, and then multiply that, and then you get to 20 years and 25 years and 32 years in prison for something you didn't do. And everybody will tell you there's no amount of money that can make up for that, and that is absolutely true. But things like this go a long way to start to heal, because you now have some sincere recognition and some sincere empathy for what they've gone through. And the state, fortunately, has a compensation statute that allows these men to get back on their feet, and women who've been wrongfully imprisoned. So I'm able to do that and try to find out what are the causes of wrongful convictions, and one, hold those folks accountable who cause this type of harm, but more so to try to make sure we fix it for the future. So this stuff doesn't happen, and every single year you're not having this same ceremony because people have been wrongfully convicted. So I want to send my sincere thank you to the whole council, everybody for doing what they've done, for the work that the Innocence Project at Cooley has done, for the work that the Michigan Innocence Clinic, or Innocence, excuse me, Innocence Conference or Clinic has done, and also for Reverend, we call him Rev, for everything he's done to help recognize everything that's going on. This ambassadors group, we have Mr. Nixon, we have some other folks here who have been wrongfully imprisoned. It's important that everybody shows up to say, we welcome you home, and we are here to help. So thank you very much. This goes a long way. You don't know what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, and to council. I didn't recognize the mayor. It was an honor to meet you last year when you were running. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here tonight. And that's the mayor. Let's say hi to the mayor. Mr. President,
Thank you. What we're going to do is very quickly vote on the three resolutions, be able to present each of the three Pontiac gentlemen with the resolutions, and then we'll have closing comments, so that way you don't have to stand through the closing comments. But we now have the first of the three resolutions, welcoming George home. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of that resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Nicholson?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the Pontiac City Council resolution welcoming Melvin DeJesus home?
I make the motion.
Support.
Moved by Rutherford, seconded by Goodman. That motion now before us. I will forego the reading of it. It is nearly identical in language to George's resolution. And for time, so we can then not make you stand the whole time. Hearing no further discussion on this particular resolution, roll call and adoption. Clerk Doyle.
Parker?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Carrington?
Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. Welcome home, Melvin. Is there a motion to approve the Pontiac City Council resolution welcoming Gilbert Lee Poole Jr. home?
Moved by Carrington.
Support by Rutherford.
It's been moved by Carrington, seconded by Rutherford. That motion is before us. And this is truly not only on behalf of the City Council, but on behalf of the 61,000 residents who we collectively represent, and the mayor, of course, as well. Whereas every resident of the city of Pontiac, Michigan has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and those rights should inherently include protection of Pontiac residents by the justice system at the municipal, state, and federal levels. Whereas Mr. Gilbert Lee Poole Jr. was wrongfully convicted in 1989 of a crime that occurred in Pontiac, Michigan that he did not commit, and sentenced to life in prison based upon faulty evidence. Whereas Mr. Poole maintained his innocence, and a growing number of advocates added their voices to the calls for his exoneration and release, but he had been confined to prison for 32 years and deprived of an excruciating number of years of freedom to live his life and be with his family. Whereas the Michigan State Attorney General's Office, the University of Michigan Innocence Clinic, and the Western Michigan University Cooley Law School Innocence Project pursued investigations that included the testing of DNA evidence proving his innocence, whereas the sentence of Mr. Poole was overturned in May 2021, and he was subsequently released from prison and able to return home. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Pontiac City Council, in partnership with Pontiac Mayor Tim Greimel, hereby warmly welcomes Mr. Gilbert Lee Poole Jr. home from his unjust incarceration. And further resolved, we express the community's heartbreak to Mr. Poole and his entire family for the intensely unjust steps that led to the loss of his freedom, the dismantling of his life, and the hurt to both his family and the family of the crime victim who is deprived of true justice for their tragic loss. And further resolved, the City Council calls upon the entire Pontiac community to extend their hands and their hearts to help welcome Mr. Poole home and to assist in his successful transition. And further resolved, we celebrate the work of Western Michigan University, Cooley Law School Innocence Project, University of Michigan Innocence Clinic, and the State Attorney General Conviction Integrity Unit for their leadership and advocacy in helping Mr. Poole restore his freedom, assisting him to prove his innocence, and hopefully helping lead to the late victim's family learning the true culprit. Signed, all members of this Pontiac City Council in Pontiac, Michigan, on this date, April 12, 2002. Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of this resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. Congratulations, gentlemen. With that, the City Council will join you where you stand to present the framed resolutions to the gentleman and the crowd. You're certainly welcome to stay where you are. It is a family affair and a group effort.
We are all going down.
I just didn't get, I'm kind of short, so.
Well, we've got a nice shot without the City Council members, so we'll do it without and then with. How about that?
Yes, sir.
All set with that set? All right, let's try and make the group even bigger. With the City Council joining everybody. I'm tall, so I'll go back. All right, with that, let's give a warm Pontiac round of applause for Mr. Poole.
I told y'all.
It's our honor. Thank you for making
We gonna be here all night. All right, you. Stop. They fine. Girl, single. You stupid.
All right, we're going to resume the council meeting now. Thank you. With comments from mayor and council.
No, that's that resolution.
Did you get everybody here?
Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers.
Yeah, but Lee Jones.
Order in the chambers. Order in the chambers. The council meeting will resume. Without objection, we'll now be having commentary from mayor and council on the action just taken and the very significant moment we've just participated in. Councilwoman Melanie Rutherford, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'll try it again. Y'all talking. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is personal for me because I believe that God is a God of second chances, and who the Son sets free is free indeed. I want to welcome these people back, these lovely gentlemen back to our community. I want them to be empowered and engaged, and I always know that we're just a phone call away. And so if y'all need anything from us, me as an individual, my number is 248-758-3017. I want to actually be an advocate for whatever y'all need in the hood. I love you, I appreciate you, and God bless you all. You're welcome.
President Pro Tem William Carrington, you have the floor.
Thank you, President McGinnis. So it's often said that justice is blind here in America. But there can no longer be any doubt that America's justice system is not blind. Indeed, in a report from the nation's oldest, largest, and most diverse civil rights and human rights coalition reveals that Lady Justice sees skin color all too well. The ACLU report documents that black and brown and poor Americans are routinely veered to ever harsher treatment at every stage of the criminal justice system, while their white counterparts are handled differently. Your cases have been a miscarriage of justice in this state as well as this nation. And I pray for each of you as you continue your transition back to our community. I sincerely welcome each and every one of you home. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Mikhail Goodman, you have the floor.
First of all, I just want to say that welcome home. That is the first and foremost thing. Our community should be doing everything it can to move mountains to help you back home, because the people that were behind you moved mountains to get you here. And I think that we have a duty to do everything we can to make this transition as just as possible, to at least do our part to make up for the things that were inflicted upon you, because that is what it is. It's really hard for me sitting up here to hear you talk about, going home and there's nothing there from when you were younger, because I know people hate that I bring this up. All three of you were imprisoned longer than I've been alive. And that puts a lot of things in perspective. And to recognize that all of that was taken away from you for something that you didn't do, it is heartbreaking. And obviously, from a perspective that I have, it will never fully grasp what the three of you went through. I mean, we have seen how inhumane our system is. And we've seen how it treats people who we may consider to deserve being on that side of the wall, being in that prison, being in any carceral system. But to imagine it being inflicted upon someone who has done nothing to deserve to be there is horrible to hear. And we should be doing everything we can to make sure that it never happens again. So of course, I welcome all of you home with open arms, and I hope that this is really just an eye-opening moment for a lot of people to realize how much more work has to be done. That way, this doesn't happen again. So again, welcome home.
Others that wish to have the floor. Mayor Grimel.
Like most of us here, I really can't imagine what you've been through, and words are inadequate to even touch on what you've been through. all I really have to say is welcome home. Welcome home.
Councilwoman Kathleen James.
I would just like to say, if I could deviate a little bit from my councilwoman to my minister cap, I would like to say that the Spirit of the Lord is here tonight. And I want you to know that His blessings are here. And I just see tremendous blessings being poured out on you men that have gone through this. I don't know what that looks like, but I see tremendous blessings for you. And I want to bless you. I thank God for you that you have been freed from these afflictions, and I'm just so thankful for what God is going to do with your lives. So thank you very much, for we appreciate the opportunity to acknowledge you and to acknowledge what you have been through. And I just want to say that blessings are on the way. Thank you.
Councilman William Parker Jr., you have the floor.
Thank you. To each and every one of you, certainly welcome home. I can't even begin to imagine, as I look back over the time that you guys were incarcerated, the things that I've enjoyed in my life that you've missed. And it brings tears to my eyes. And yet I'm reminded, I believe Dr. King said something, I can't quite get all the words, but he said something that's to the effect that truth that is trampled will rise up. The Bible speaks to truth not being consumed, that it always comes back. And I thank God that truth still came forward for you guys, and that somebody heard it and somebody recognized truth for what it was, and you are now free. And I thank God that you all recognize that along with all the external help it was also God was in the mix helping you get free, because him whom the Lord set free is free indeed. And so we thank you. And one of the things I did notice as you was making your comments is that there did not seem to be any animosity in each and every one of you. You still have your character about you. You still have your integrity about you. You didn't lose any of that. And I applaud you for that. That even after going through all that you went through, you still know who you are and whose you are. So thank you, and enjoy the rest.
Mr. Poole, if you can share with us how old you were when you were first incarcerated.
I was 22 years old.
22, and you're 57 today. Mr. Nixon, what was your age when you were first incarcerated?
19.
And your age today?
36.
36. Melvin?
My journey started when I was 23.
23. George? 19 years old. My God. I don't want to end on a political note, but I do want to acknowledge that the current Attorney General for the state of Michigan, Dana Nessel, that there are consequences to who's in office. And in this case, positive consequences, that there was a commitment to conviction integrity and to be willing to look in reality in the eye and see when previous whomever, previous leaders, previous attorneys, previous judges, previous law enforcement officials, previous witnesses who lied on you, people, I mean, my God, I don't want to go into all of it, but so many steps in the process, it failed you, and I'm grateful that, thank God that there was some people in power, some people that had the determination to be able to pursue it further. And so I welcome that there is now a conviction integrity unit at the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, at the State Attorney General's Office. The three gentlemen that we have passed resolutions for tonight, all three of these crimes happened in our city, many decades ago at this point, but happened in our city. The victims were from our city. And so there is so much suffering that justice wrongly delivered has done to so many involved. And so on behalf of the city of Pontiac and behalf of all the 61,000, we are with you, God bless you, and we are extremely sorry that you had to spend a single day, let alone all of these years, wrongfully convicted and imprisoned. We wish you the best.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I just want to say what a blessed day this is. It's also George's birthday today. So.
Whoa! Wow. Happy birthday to you, sir. Thank you again. Thank you for making the time to be here tonight. Feel free to make your exit. You don't have to sit through all of our ordinances and resolutions. You have been the highlight of our evening. God bless you all. We now move to subcommittee reports. Our once-a-month check-in for the 7 subcommittees of the City Council. Communications, Engagement, and Operations. Councilman Goodman, you have the floor.
So I'm gonna just say I'm gonna need a quick moment. I guess you can go next down the line.
All right, Councilman Carrington.
Thank you, President McGinnis. The Public Safety and Health and Wellness Council Subcommittee met March the 10th, 2022. Some of the returning business discussed was proactive local recruitment and retention efforts by Waterford Regional Fire Department, proactive local recruitment efforts by Oakland County Sheriff Department. We had an investigation update for 821 St. Clair Street fire, which happened this past January. Progress on file of life magnetic cards from the Sheriff Department, which they're passing out, trying to get to our seniors. Some of the new business discussed was Oakland County Sheriff's Department Community Policing Team Strategy. Also talked about a sheriff deputy being assigned to downtown Pontiac for the coming summer months. We also spoke about the flock camera systems pilot program and the possibility of this council voting on that tonight. Safety concerns expressed by residents at South Kiwanis Park. We also reviewed crime data with some of the monthly reports that we got from the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, as well as a monthly report from Waterford Regional Fire Department in February concerning their latest response times to calls from our residents. And that concludes my report.
Anything you'd like to offer on facilities and property?
We did not meet due to me not being able to chair that meeting, President.
All right. Communications, Engagement, and Operations. Councilman Goodman.
Yes, so the most important thing that we discussed during that was the website RFP process, which, as you remember, has been concluded as of right now. So we have made that decision. And there were a couple standing updates in regards to the implementation of what we have funded for cable, the IT updates, especially regarding Windows 365, which last time I checked during that meeting, we do have grant funding for. So that's great to have in terms of city funds. Some updates in regards to the branding and marketing for the city moving forward and going along with that process, as well as just simply going over some housekeeping items when it comes to internal council operations. But that is it.
Thank you. Economic Development, Housing, and Planning. That's me. We had our meeting on April 4th. The minutes for that meeting are were adopted in the consent agenda. A big focus for that subcommittee is the challenge with rental properties and those that opt not to register their rental properties. And what stronger work can the city and the departments do to make that less of a financial incentive, that make compliance to do the right thing, to register your rental properties, to have them inspected for safety, health, and wellness, to pay the appropriate fees, to make that the right way and the financially attractive way, and therefore the consideration of increasing the fines or the enforcement of those that violate that those that choose not to basically flout the rental registration and inspection requirements. So that was a great deal of the focus and will continue to be an active part of this focus. We recognize that as a challenge, but also an opportunity for the city and for our neighborhoods. We had been following up with the Pontiac Housing Commission. They were supposed to submit annual financial audits and annual reports. That has since been supplied to the City Council. It's required based on the ordinance that created the Housing Commission that those be provided. So that has been since resolved. And we spent a great deal of time talking about how many properties, specifically a lot of apartment buildings, over the decades have had pilots, which is an acronym that stands for Payments in Lieu of Taxes. And we have learned that 34% of rental units in the city are under a pilot, meaning that it was many years baked into the system where in lieu of taxes there are payments made, but it doesn't adequately cover all of the essential services that we as taxpayers have to cover. Police and fire, parks and recreation, public works, roads, you name it. And so that we realize is a long-standing imbalance that we need to be very shrewd about when we're considering pilot renewals and new pilots, because that is, as with the other conversation about rental properties, a recurring issue that we have to be very strategic about, so that way we as a city, us as residents, actually have the resources to provide the services that are essential to life and to having an adequate quality of life. So those were two of the most sort of larger conversations that we did more thorough analysis on. But further economic development planning items were talked about. Very briefly, I'll run through some of the larger residential projects that are underway in our city. The Carriage Place renovation project, Fieldstone subdivision is expanding, Stonegate subdivision is expanding with new residential construction, the Winston Commons at Huron and Mechanic and Douglas, American House Senior Housing, they anticipate opening by June, 24 Bloomfield, additional townhouse apartments near that American House behind the Menards. Westwood Apartments is the new name for the Gulf Drive apartments that are being built. And then we touched on the West Manor reconstruction project. Progress is being made there on Paddock Street. And so you can see in the minutes other commercial developments and industrial developments that were reviewed. And we meet the first Monday of every month from 9 to 10 a.m. at the Council Legislative Conference Room. With that, Finance and Personnel, Councilman Nicholson.
The Finance and Personnel Committee in March, we reviewed January's financial statements, went through each of those budget items and to look at the budgeted amounts versus the actual, asked a lot of questions, got a better understanding of how our finances are built. We continue conversations related to the rising taxable values in the city and how the city can best capture those funds. We are on at the next meeting going to be reviewing millages and then continuing those conversations regarding potential tax amendments to put to the voters. We are also reviewing any personnel changes. So any month the administration brings us personnel changes, potential additions, changes, major goings on that relate to personnel matters. So those are reviewed. The next meeting we'll be reviewing February's financial statements. So that will be at 2:00 this Thursday.
Thank you. Law in the Courts, Councilman Parker.
Thank you. Law in the Courts, actually what we were trying to do was bring all of the different arms of the law and the courts together into one room so they could share, so we could perhaps come up with some ideas as to how we can support each other and make the system work a little bit better. We had a presentation by the Michigan Indigent Defense Commission, and the two employees that are actually city employees came by and shared with us some of the challenges of doing their duties and some of the things that they had been working on. We had a representative from the Racial Justice Actions Committee of the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office come by, and she came by last week and she shared with you, so I won't go back through that again. But I will just briefly mention that they are having an expungement fair April 30th from 10 to 2 p.m. at United Wholesale Mortgage Sports Complex. If you have any issues or have at least, I think, up to 3 felonies, you can come by and someone will work with you to get those expunged. We talked about there was just so much stuff going on at this meeting. It was such a good meeting. But one of the things we really want to try to do is get the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, get the courts together, get the MDIC together, and even include a blight court in this so they can probably perhaps put some teeth into the blight court process so that people don't think they can just pay their little fines and get away with it, and pay their fines and get away with it, and pay their fines and get away with it. And so there was a lot of things that we discussed. I don't want to tie up too much time today to meet. I believe the minutes are in the agenda for reading, but we meet every fourth Monday at 4 p.m., and we are looking to make sure that we have all of these groups coming together so that we can make sure that everybody is aware of what is happening in the prosecutor's office, what is happening in 5th District Court, what is happening in Blight Court, and what is happening also to MDIC. Thank you, President.
Thank you. Parks, Recreation, Public Works, Councilwoman James.
Yes, we held our last meeting on March the 28th. Our meetings are held on the last Monday of every month at 12 noon in the Legislative Conference Room. This month we looked at youth recreation. We have currently youth recreation programs at the UWM Sports Complex and at Harrington School. Also, there is a group that is meeting to coordinate all of the other community organizations that are going to be offering youth recreation activities now and throughout the summer. They're trying to organize one way of communicating to residents all of the activities that's going on for youth, anything that you could possibly want your child to be involved in. So more on that is being organized and coordinated so we can have really a streamlined process. If a parent wants to get their child involved, there will be like one place that you can go and look at the different programs that they could possibly get involved in. Also, we spent a lot of time with community cleanup. The flyers are, well, the yard signs are right there, and the flyers are out in the lobby. Lots of folks are involved in it, and we are hopeful that everyone in the community will take part. We'll take a look at their street. We'll take a look at the public spaces near them and get involved in that cleanup. There is also going to be 115 trees planted by the Rotary Club to celebrate their 100th anniversary. And later in May, there will be another 30 trees planted by Relief of Michigan. So Pontiac is really getting a boost with environmental, with these trees being planted throughout the city. So hopefully we will all see those trees. And if anyone is interested in possibly helping to care for those trees, maybe to water, to keep them going, please reach out to your council person. Also, CDBG funds are being used for sidewalk repairs throughout the city. That work has just started. So if you would like to know for your district what streets are being worked on with the CDBG funds, please reach out to your council person. The road work that has been started is Cherry Lawn Street, Starlight, Fairmount, and Grandview have all, road work has already started in those areas. Also on our senior centers, both Bowen Center and the Ruth Peterson Center, the parking lots in those at those centers are already being worked on, and there is additional repair and renovation that will be made on those buildings throughout the summer. Let me see. I think that's about it. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I should have added from my subcommittee, since then the Planning Commission had their meeting for the month. There was one item on the agenda. It was a preliminary site plan review located in District 2 on Vanguard Drive. So it's across from or I should say adjacent to the FedEx property where it's a business park going in, where it's single story but multiple units, so that way it's almost like an incubator for small businesses that can't really handle the full footprint but could use some storage / some commercial front space. So that was preliminary. A full site plan review will still be coming to the Planning Commission in later months, and that's called Rise Commercial District. There's about 13 of them in the Midwest. This would be the first in Michigan, so Pontiac would get the first, and we'll find out more about that, and we'll report that out to the council and the community. That concludes subcommittee reports. Recognition of elected officials. Congresswoman Haley Stevens is with us.
Well, what a sincere honor to be with you all this evening, and thank you for the recognition of the recently incarcerated gentleman that was sobering as well as inspiring, and it is a narrative I will take back to the halls of Congress with me. The work of the Innocence Project, the work of the city of Pontiac, in recognizing freed individuals and providing a safe space for them to continue to live their lives. And as a member of Congress, I want to ensure that we are making those investments, making the investments in criminal justice reform that are so desperately needed. President Pro Tem Carrington's statistics were, absolutely sobering, and it is a wake-up call for our nation that black men in America are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than white men. We have an incarceration problem in this country, and you hit it on the head, Mr. Council President, that we are lucky to have an Attorney General that prioritized the work to see innocent men freed. And it is incumbent upon all of us, and Mr. Mayor knows this all too well, in his effort to build and continue to invest in a thriving city that is welcoming to all. So I am home from Washington, D.C., and from legislating very rigorously. We got our budget passed. I think that hadn't been done since the time I saw you last. So we do have a Department of Education that is funded. We do have a historic investment in historically black colleges and universities. I was so thrilled to see Oakland County supporting the Black Empowerment College Tour, 150 students going to see the likes of Howard University, which I know Councilwoman Rutherford knows very well, and we salute her almost graduated daughter, Mariah, who is a pride and joy of the city of Pontiac, along with so many of our other students, though, who are grabbing onto those opportunities. They might not all go to Howard, but certainly seeing them take off for that. I was recently named to a conference committee by the Speaker of the House to get the America Competes Act legislation done. That will be historic funding, again, in the equity inclusion efforts for STEM education, as well as our supply chain, our chip shortages, jobs, real people jobs, and something for everyone. And I also just wanted to share on the note of the recognition of our freed men who were before us here today, that we recently in the House, and I was proud to sponsor and vote for this legislation, decriminalize marijuana and expunge the records of those who have been criminalized for marijuana. It has passed the House. This is legislation that has passed the House. It needs to pass the Senate. It needs to go to the President's desk for signature. I know many of you on Council support this initiative, as do I. We also voted to lower the cost of insulin, to cap it at $35, a huge deal. You know, here we are in the beautiful city of Pontiac, by the way. Isn't it nice that we're on this side of the sunset? Because there's been many times when we've been here and the sun has already set, but we still have light and we have a warm day here today. But we know as we go out in our community that the rising costs are affecting everyday Americans. That grocery store, the gas prices, and on and on and on. I am a Democrat running for re-election in Michigan's 11th district, running to represent Pontiac, running to do the work of the people, and we've got a plan to lower the costs. And it starts with Senator Raphael Warnock's bill that lowering the insulin cost to $35, again, something that's passed the House that needs to pass the Senate. So that's a little bit about what we're up to in the Congress. I salute you all as we head into the springtime holiday season, and I am so deeply grateful for this vibrant and incredible council and your work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Stevens. We are now joined by Jonathan Wertheimer from the staff of State Representative Brenda Carter.
You know, over the years, I've gotten used to what to expect at a city council with your committee reports and ordinances, but tonight I have to agree with the Congresswoman. It absolutely was an honor to be a part of watching these 4 men come home to Pontiac after so many years behind bars, more years than I've been alive, too. I can agree with you there, Councilman Goodman. But thank you, Council President McGinnis, Mayor Greimel, and council members for allowing me to address you this evening. My name is Jonathan Wertheimer, and I am the Chief of Staff and Policy Director for State Representative Rep. Brenda Carter. Rep. Carter and I are both very concerned with the growing levels of violence in our community. We would like to commend Mayor Greimel for his much-needed public safety and violence prevention town hall last month. Mayor Greimel, you started a conversation. and a conversation that Rep. Carter would like to continue. Next Tuesday, April 19th, from 12 o'clock p.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Bowen Center, Rep. Carter will host a gun violence prevention panel. We will have a number of panelists there, including Deputy Mayor Kalfani Stevens, Oakland County Commissioner Angela Powell, City Council Pro Tem Emeritus Randy Carter, School Board President Gil Garrett, Raheem Harris of Pontiac Universal Crimes, Denise Harris of Healing Heart Safety Services, and Kenny Anderson of Black Men United Against Violence. We hope to have an in-depth discussion with our community. What changes do you believe need to be made? How can the state, county, or city help to mitigate the violence? We want to hear from you. Again, that event will be hosted April 19th, 12 o'clock to 1:30 p.m. at the Bowen Center here in Pontiac. If you are not able to attend Rep. Carter's gun violence prevention panel, there are other opportunities to have your voices heard. On April 13th, Rep. Carter will speak at a press conference in support of End Gun Violence Michigan. End Gun Violence Michigan is a group hoping to place sensible firearm reforms on the ballot in 2024. This press conference will take place on the Capitol steps at 12 o'clock p.m. on April 13th. We would love to see you all there. Then on April 28th, Rep. Carter will be joined in Lansing by Crime Survivors of Michigan for their Survivors Speaks event. Rep. Carter would like to thank Tamika Ramsey, Denise Harris, and Delia Sharp for organizing free bus fare, breakfast, and lunch for the event. The bus will leave the Oakland Point Shopping Center on Telegraph at 8 o'clock a.m. and will return by 3 o'clock p.m. If you are interested, please reach out to Denise Harris at 248-778-7176 or healingheartssafety@gmail.com or Delia Sharp at 248-830-4939 or via email at idyourdream@gmail.com. As always, if you have questions about any of the events I mentioned, other events, or are in need of assistance, you can always reach out to Rep. Carter's office at 517-373-0475. That number again, 517-373-0475, or via email at brendacarter@house.mi.gov. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes recognition of elected officials. We are now at agenda address. President Pro Tem William Carrington, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Agenda address, Council Emeritus Gloria Miller.
Good evening. And Mr. Carrington, you don't have to call me Emeritus. With the disrespect you showed me last week, call me Gloria Miller from now. Okay. The first thing I want to speak on tonight is regards to, on the agenda, in regards to the National Career Group. I keep telling people in Pontiac it's so small. And I just happened to be sitting with the young lady that night that she was brought up to do her presentation. Is it true that Pastor McDonald recommended him to you, Mayor? That's what she told me. So now the pastors are getting in, well, running the government now again. Okay. Second of all, the flock safety system. Let's see if you can listen to the citizen of Pontiac on that one. That's all I'm going to say on that one. And the one for Micah. Oh, Micah. Boy, do I know Micah. I was in office for 4 years, you will know. Micah was a headache to me in my district. Emerson School is my district. Matter of fact, that was the last project I did before I came out of office. We went over there and cleaned it up, me and Perry Earl and a crew of people. The windows stay broken out. It's open to trespass. I have a lot of supporters up in that area. And they call me all the time. And to give him anything to see the Pontiac, if you go back, I heard Vern last week speaking on it. You know, Vern, I looked him in the eye, like, tell the truth. We mentioned truth tonight. Boy, it's going to be a lot of truth tonight when I come back the next time. Micah kept Emerson School terribly. And the neighbors over in Emerson, now, when he get ready to bring something for Emerson School, even though I'm not in office, but I still got power over it, I'm going to bring all the residents and let them tell you how he have kept Emerson. I'm not going to speak for them. I told them they got to speak for themselves. We got to stop giving political favors to people that we know personally, and all of you tied to Micah politically. I know how, and if you want me to, I'll bring it all to you. So that's a conflict in voting for it. All these nonprofits that you guys in, we were never in stuff like that, the 10th Council. Never. You had a lot of nonprofits that has to do with Michael's company. And like I said, I got evidence. When I speak on something, I got evidence. I didn't come for that tonight. The second thing, like I mentioned before, this flock system, let's see what you're doing tonight. Let's see if you listen to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Larry Jasper.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, citizens of Pontiac. I come to you regarding your resolutions 1 and 2. You're looking at bidders. We talked about it last week about the low fruit hanging and not taking on the small person because the larger corporation was better and we didn't like the resumes. When the mayor unlawfully and abused her power getting rid of the RFP process with the Phoenix Center, I decided to go to the council. Deceased councilman George William and I had a few discussions because he sat on the real estate subcommittee. During those discussions, I wanted to make sure that we had the Pontiac citizens involved in the process because the small businesses don't have the ability to get bonding a lot of times, don't have insurance or licenses because something happened during that period. With that said, he helped me put the wraparound insurance policy in the Little City project, which you guys have in your emergency resolution that I supplied. That being said, when you're looking at the two contracts, you have the mayor and the deputy mayor supporting this small guy for $75,000. The $43,000 we save, you could use that for $400 for retirement people for the next 10 months. Or you could do something else, like maybe fix the electricity that went out Thursday night and almost killed my wife. She went past hearing in 1 second. Instead of totaling the car, would have killed her. And this is tied to the Phoenix Center and the reporting not done by the mayor, because they could have just filed a police report and had it all fixed. That's tied into your main master plan. And I'm sure that's part of the reason, because the partnership you have, which you don't know who it is, because they have as many counterparts as they want, and many LLCs and nonprofits that they need to hide it all underneath wrong, is going to cause a problem. Now, with that said, the flock safety agreement, now you guys need to decide what that's going to do, but had you had that when they broke into the Phoenix Center and pulled all the copper and electrical out of it,
That concludes your
wouldn't
time.
have it.
Thank you. Ms. Darlene Clark.
Oh, sorry, guys. I'm Darlene Clark. I'm talking as a resident. What I have to speak about tonight is concerning opportunity for the City Hall and for our City Council, for our residents as well. We are surrounded by Auburn Hills, Birmingham, Waterford, and other little cities around us. And every one of those cities have in common, they have a very beautiful municipal city hall to come to.
And Ms. Clark, are you addressing the agenda for tonight's meeting?
Yes. Do you not want me to speak on it?
Well,
Which item?
Which item? Because we're trying to.
Well, it's basically the whole item for what your positions are on the boards that you guys just accepted, like financial, recreation and park, and my minutes are clicking. So I mean,
go ahead.
So can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. This is a concern of the agenda and the welfare of the city of Pontiac. We focus on one thing in Pontiac, and that's crime, but it's more to Pontiac than just crime. There's people that's actually trying to stay and make a true living out of this and invest in the city of Pontiac. There's people who lived here all their lives, as over 70 and 80 years old, born and work here in Pontiac. Again, like I was saying before I was interrupted, we're surrounded by Auburn Hills, Waterford, and Birmingham. And each one of these three cities have in common, they have a municipal city hall where their environment is very, very beautiful. They have it when you walk into there, they have classes or they can have meetings for the citizens to come in. When you come to Pontiac City Hall, it doesn't have a very welcoming environment, not only for the workers, but for the people who live here to come. You want to stop crime. But how can you stop crime when the dress that you wear or the facade that you wear is not bringing anybody up to growth, which means you're not pulling them up, you're keeping them down. When you live in an environment that's always on bended knees and has been on bended knees, they don't know how to look up. City Hall needs to have something to have these people look up to. The parking lot is terrible. Walking in the building is terrible. Going
That does
to the
conclude
office,
your time.
It's my time, but he stopped me from
And
talking.
I kept it going for you.
All right.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda address, President McGinnis.
All right, we are now at discussions. The first up, the Pontiac Streets repaving program. Wanted to make sure the community was aware about street resurfacing that's beginning. Want to give it the floor over to the mayor and administration if you'd like to elaborate further, so that way residents can be prepared.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would invite Mr. Siddiqui, our city engineer, to the podium to describe the details of the projects.
Good evening. So this is a project that I believe I've mentioned a few times while I've been up here, and Councilwoman James mentioned it as well today, that the project's underway. Obviously, started yesterday, April 11th, and the project includes West Columbia, Cherry Hill, Starlight, Fairmount, but then it also includes Bynum, Gambrell, Granville, Omar, and Granada. So right now the contractor's focused on the Cherry Hill, Fairmount, Starlight, and West Columbia portion of the project. They were adjusting drainage structures yesterday and today, and they'll be doing some asphalt milling coming up in the next few days here, and then pavement repairs and resurfacing. So there's a whole schedule. If anyone would like to see that schedule in more detail, you can reach out to me.
For these first phases, will there be access through the roads?
There will be access. So when they mill, they're going to mill off the top 2 inches of the pavement. So the bottom portion of the pavement will still be there. People can still drive on it. It's perfectly fine. And then obviously in a few weeks it'll be resurfaced. So.
And on a related note, I think I started to see road closure signs for Mill Street downtown that this council and mayor has previously proceeded with. What's the estimated time frame for Mill Street?
So we just had a pre-construction meeting on that project today. So I'd like to give another update on that one. You had approved the roller compacted concrete. Unfortunately, that contractor has closed his doors, so we're just going to go back to a traditional concrete on that project now. It's going to start on May 2nd, is what the contractor is saying right now. They'll probably be out there before that just to do some exploration for utilities and ensure that they don't hit anything when they're out there.
Mayor Grimal.
We want to make sure that we bring the new contract, obviously, before council. If the contractor that council approved has closed their doors, we need to make sure that we're bringing the new contract for the contractor that is the alternative before council. So let's make sure we do that before at next council's meeting.
And sorry, I wasn't clear. So the prime contractor is still the same. The subcontractor that was going to do the specialized concrete work, they've closed they've gone out of business. So the subcontractor is no longer there, but the prime is still working on that project.
Okay, and council only approved the contracting entity that the city directly contracts with, not any of the subcontracts, obviously. Makes sense.
President Pro Tem Carrington.
Thank you for letting us know that. So have you thought about, that company hasn't thought about finding another company that can actually provide that particular service?
Unfortunately, in Michigan, there was only that one company. There are others in Ohio and other places. I don't know what type of schedule ramifications there might be if they were to go out and try and find someone else to do that work now. I can reach out to them and find out.
So what is our savings since you decided to go with the old way
I think it was like 27,000 or 28,000, something like that.
All right, thank you.
Other discussion on this item in terms of Pontiac Streets repaving program? Councilman Goodman.
I mean, just while you're giving the announcement, I don't know if I heard it. Can you say when the project should be completed about-ish estimated time? For Columbia, Cherry.
So Columbia, Cherry Hill, and those. So I think I'll have to go back and confirm, but I believe it was at the end of May. Were those streets, and then obviously there's the other streets that they'll be working on as well, and some of that work is going to happen simultaneously. So as they wrap up a lot of the bulk of the work in this portion, they'll start moving to the other streets, and still have maybe restoration crews and stuff coming through and doing the work over here. So their paving crews might move to other streets, but so there'll be overlap on the various streets.
Okay.
Other discussion? I'm sorry, there's a reflection glare. Councilman Parker, I see you now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sadiq, could you? I certainly thank you for the streets that you are working on. Can you give me some idea, though, when you will be in District 5 working on those streets?
So District 5, I believe,
particularly Bay Street, which is in front of the school.
Oh, Bay Street. Bay Street is not part of this program. This project was Bynum, Gumbrell. I believe in District 5 it's Bynum and Gumbrell and Granville. Those are the streets in District 5 in this project.
Bynum, you say?
Bynum, Gumbrell, and Granville.
So I'll catch you after.
Okay.
Councilwoman Rutherford.
Can you name the streets that are in District 1?
Not in this project. There isn't one.
What is the update for the Franklin? And do you have an update for Franklin or Bagley Road?
So Bagley Road is under design currently. That will go in spring and summer of 23 is when that would go under construction. And then Franklin Road, we're actually working on securing funding right now. We have funding secured. We're working on moving it up to 24, so it would be spring of 24 construction.
So there are no streets in District 1 that are being repaired?
Mill Street.
Mill Street.
I know that one. I'm talking about Crystal Lake, Golf Lake Drive. None of them?
Golf is also as part of the Bagley project. So Golf and Bagley will be constructed next spring.
Mayor Grimal.
I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but I do just want to emphasize that all of us up here obviously are newly elected, and we can't simply get shovels in the ground this year because of our priorities, because it takes at least a year, between when a decision is made to do a street and getting shovels in the ground. Because after a decision is made to do a street, one needs to do design work, one needs to do engineering work, one needs to go out to bid with, make sure that we're getting competitive bids in and selecting a contractor, and all of that work takes a substantial amount of time. So some of these projects that have been mentioned, we've actually moved forward in time as a result of all of our collective concerns. And we're going to continue to look for opportunities to do that. So I realize there's concern, I think rightly so, about the fact that Bagley and Franklin and Gulf Drive and a number of other streets are not being done this year. But that was all because of decisions made before all of us up here were elected. And the fact that one of these projects, Bagley and Gulf Drive, is being done next year, that's the soonest we could affect that decision. Because again, there's literally no physical possible way for a project to be done this year if all of us had decided on January 4th, our first day in office, to do it this year because of the amount of time that's required between design, engineering, and letting of bids. In terms of Bay Street, that's a little bit of a separate issue, and we should be talking about that Pastor Councilman. So that's a very legitimate concern. And I know that it's in really terrible shape. I know that there's been patchwork being done, but we need to talk about how we get real repaving, real restructuring work of that roadway on the list of projects in the next few years here. And I welcome that conversation.
Others that wish to have the floor? All right, this will be a continuing conversation. We appreciate the updates so that the community is aware of what's impacting our neighborhoods. Next discussion item, Clinton River Trail resurfacing from Telegraph to Bagley. At August 17th, 2021, City Council, there was a resolution to approve the agreement between the city and a contractor for the 2021 Clinton River Trail Maintenance and Safety Improvement Projects. So as part of that work, and there's a great deal of grant funding that's making it possible, 1.7 miles of new trail is being resurfaced from South Old Telegraph to Bagley Street in Pontiac. And the resurfacing would take the 2-track, which is kind of like 2 ruts in the ground, to a 10-foot wide path. And the project would also improve 2 bridges in the impacted area. So just wanted to get a sense from administration if word on the street was true that that resurfacing project will happen soon. And our understanding is that the trail will still be passable, although from time to time during construction, there will be sections that will be blocked off with adequate signage, so that way you're not surprised by that news. But Mayor, administration, anything further you'd like to update the residents with that?
I'm happy to report that it will be happening soon, just as you indicated, and I'll allow Mr. Siddiqui to give a little more detail about the schedule of the repaving of the Clinton River Trail from Bagley West.
Yeah, so in the past few days, the contractor has been out there to remove the trees that were called for removal on this project. And then, as you mentioned, on the 18th, they will start the actual heavy lifting of resurfacing those the trail with the limited closures of segments of the trail. So,
and is the estimated completion September, tentatively?
Yeah, and then again, a lot of that September may be restoration, right? Which is landscaping and that sort of work, with the heavy lifting being done maybe by June or so. So it just it's various items of work that are spread out across that time.
Thank you. Others that wish to have the floor? Councilwoman James.
Yes, you mentioned about the trees. Did the contractor, was he the one that put the ribbon around the trees in the front of Bodette Park?
In front of Bodette Park?
Yeah.
I'm not clear about that. If it's on the trail, if it's
I'm
along
wondering
the trail,
if these were the trees that he targeted to take down.
They did mark them with ribbons. I'm not sure about those specific trees, but I can check on that.
Well, 2 of those trees are trees that were planted by a community group. Are they going to replace those trees?
I think there is some
Cleveland Piers?
replacement called for as well. I'm not again, I'll look into those specific trees and get back.
Okay, thank you.
Others that wish to have the floor? One acknowledged, I think this repaving is completely within Councilman Rutherford's District 1.
I know.
But no cars can drive on it. All right, any other discussion on that? All right, with that, we are now at discussion C, DTE Energy recent power outages impacting Pontiac neighborhoods. That was a very disruptive incident that happened since our last city council meeting. Wanted to inquire with the administration, what do we know, and should there be any other things that we should expect?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I recently met with DTE Energy because I know that there have been a lot of concerns about the, frankly, lack of reliability of the electric grid here in Pontiac. And this isn't new this year. We had a lot of outages last year and some incredibly lengthy outages, one of which lasted, as I recall, 6 or 7 days last year and affected a lot of residents. And these outages and the problems going back with the reliability of electricity in Pontiac go back as long as I've been involved with the city, and I'm sure longer than that. So we do have some very serious problems. The conversation with DTE was interesting because it did shed some light on the reasons for this lack of reliability that all of us have experienced with all these outages. Specifically, the infrastructure here, the electric infrastructure in Pontiac, is very old, and it's older than the infrastructure in most communities in the state. So that's number one. Number two, the infrastructure, some of the infrastructure, not all of the infrastructure in the city, but a good chunk of the infrastructure in the city goes back to an old Consumers Energy electrical system in the city that was acquired by DTE in the 80s. And that infrastructure uses a different level of kilovoltage than the rest of the city, and it uses a different level of kilovoltage than most of the surrounding communities. And as a result, normally in a community, when power goes out, the system can be relatively quickly shifted to neighboring systems to provide electricity when infrastructure goes down. So in other words, that infrastructure goes down because a tree limb falls on a wire or something else, and that system can be, in relatively short order, it might take a day or two, but in relatively short order, be switched over to a neighboring system's electricity. One of the reasons why we've had such long power outages in Pontiac is that this one portion of our electricity infrastructure cannot be switched over to neighboring infrastructure because it's at a different kilovoltage. And DTE began working on this to change and modify the kilovoltage so that it matches that on surrounding substations and in surrounding communities several years ago. It's part of a investment that is greater than $100 million between when this investment started and when it will be finished in 2026. And that's good news, but it's taking time. And as part of this transition and this work that's being done, we'll see some periodic outages. I know that like many residents, I've experienced the outages over the past week or two here. Some of that is because of the lack of reliability, the first outage, but the follow-up outage was to allow for service and work to be done in upgrading the infrastructure. And with your permission, President McGinnis, I'd love to invite DTE in to perhaps give a more detailed presentation here at City Hall about the work that they're doing, the time frames involved, and how in the longer term, once this work is done, and it'll be done on some substations in 2025, on other substations in 2026, why it will provide for much greater reliability of our electricity here in Pontiac in the years following. But I think it would be interesting for council to have an opportunity to ask questions. I think it would be enlightening to the community to see DTE's presentation and see them getting into all of the details and all of the weeds about this. But this is important work. We have 3 or 4 substations here in Pontiac out of the 14 substations that service our community that are among the least reliable substations in the state. They're in the bottom 10% of reliability of the state. That's obviously not acceptable. It's incumbent on us as the city government to push them to do more and to do it faster. But the good news is that there is a plan to improve the reliability of the electricity grid here in our community.
Councilman Goodman.
So I will say I'm happy to hear the news that DT is trying to bolster our electrical grid. However, I think it's just a very good time to point out that this is kind of the problem that we run into when you allow one company to essentially run all of the energy grid in our state, especially on this side. Because when things go wrong, there's only one person that we can complain to. When prices go up, we can't really go anywhere else. So we kind of run into the situation of needing things to be fixed, and there's only one person who can fix it. And again, it's great to hear that these things are being addressed in our community, because it's really rough to hear that, you know, our electrical grid is really that unreliable, especially with the aging population that we have in the city who need constant electricity. So I think it's really important to hear that, but I think we also have to have a greater conversation beyond this room about the situation that we are in with how things currently are.
Councilman Nicholson?
I would just like to see DTE when they have these follow-up repairs and they know that the power is going to be out. I know that some residents received a robocall. I certainly didn't, and had a bar full of people with the power out, so that was certainly dangerous. Luckily, we have backup lights and we were able to keep people safe. But I think that if there's a way that they could let us know, and then we respectively also could put out the word through our media, I think that would be really helpful.
Well, that's a really great point, and I actually did not get much notice myself. I think we got notified a little bit earlier that same day that the planned outage occurred. The previous day, where the outage was not planned, we obviously didn't get any heads up. That was a reliability problem. But even the day when they planned to do the outage, we got notified as the mayor's office about the same time that the automated text messages and robocalls went out to residents. So we really didn't get much of a heads up. I did not realize, though, to your point, Councilman, that not every customer got a robocall or a text message, and that's a problem in and of itself. And I don't know why that would be the case. That's unacceptable, obviously.
Or why the repair work was done at 9 p.m., right, when we had a concert going in our downtown and restaurants open and, people awake, why less, intrusive hours could have been considered for those repairs.
Again, all the more reason.
Certainly wasn't daylight. I could understand if they needed daylight or something like that, but it was 9 p.m. It was already dark.
All the more reason to have DTE here so that we can collectively ask those questions and get answers to those questions publicly.
Great.
Councilman Rutherford.
Mayor Grimel, I just think it also needs to be notified that when these power outages happen, it doesn't only just affect like being able to see, it affects people's food, it affects like their supplies, it affects their insulin, and so we have to get a better understanding because we have some people who are impoverished or are in between checks. Then when they turn it off for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, it could affect their not just only their mental health, but it could affect their physical health and also the feeding of their family. So I need you to convey that to them when you have them come, because when they don't give us a opportunity to prepare for these things, it can actually affect the family structure.
There's no question about it. When we see outages for days, those are all unplanned for outages. Those are because of reliability problems with the grid. Those are not outages that DTE plans for. There's only one outage that I'm aware of in recent years that's been planned, and that was the outage last Thursday night, and it lasted from 9 o'clock to I think 9:30 p.m. So it was a half an hour outage.
Right.
Those are going to be the planned outages. So the outages that are last hours or days are all unplanned outages. So there's no way for them to inform us of those in advance.
Oh, I know.
What we need them to, and I understand how serious those outages are. I know that I was on the phone last summer trying to get assistance for residents at Carriage Circle and Woodland Heights who literally
Mayor has the floor.
Who literally were seeing their insulin go bad because their freezers and refrigerators were not functioning. So these are literally life and death issues, and I have conveyed that to DTE. We will continue to convey that to DTE, but it's why the work of improving the reliability of the electrical grid is so incredibly urgent and why we need to push them to do more and to do it faster.
Thank you.
Councilman Goodman.
So I would just say that leads us to make a different point of, while we are working on this, the reliability of our grid to be improved, we have to come up with some sort of plan to protect our residents in cases like this. If we have residents who are, watching their insulin go bad, we need to have a much more coordinated way of providing for people in these situations. Even if it looks like something like District 1 is out of power, there is a church or a larger community place in which on this side of town that still has power, we can send them there. And making sure that the city has a centralized plan to do so. That way, going forward, we're not really in these positions of having to figure it out last minute.
Others that wish to have the floor? That concludes this discussion item. We're now at discussion D, cleaning up our Pontiac neighborhoods together. You've heard us speak at previous weeks. We just want to make sure that the information was still available to you. Councilwoman James raised a lot of that through the subcommittee report for Parks, Recreation, and Public Works. We also want to flag for the community that earlier this year we voted to allow Pontiac residents to not have to pay for household hazardous waste for the no-haz collection. That first collection is coming up in a few days on April 18th at the Oakland County Complex, 1200 North Telegraph. You can find out more at Oakland County. Deputy Mayor Stevens.
Just a, I guess, correction. We have the no-haz flyers outside of City Hall chambers. 2022 collection events, April 30th, June 4th, July 23rd, September 24th.
Thank you for that clarification. That's what I get for listening to somebody at the meeting last night who said April 18th. So it's the April 30th. I didn't put it in writing on the agenda, thank goodness. But so let the word go out. There are 4 collection dates for household hazardous waste: paint, aerosol, computers, TVs, all sorts of things that if it goes into the ground, we don't want those toxins seeping in. That is free for Pontiac residents. And of course, the Pontiac Rotary Club tree planting. Mayor Grommel, did you want to update the community or the council on progress with street sweeping plans and challenges that were talked about last week?
Yeah, thank you. We had the opportunity collectively as a council and as the mayor to meet with the Auburn Hills City Council, and we talked about a few different possible ways that we might collaborate. One of those ways was to share equipment, and we are in talks with them about borrowing or leasing their street sweeper equipment. The city is without a street sweeper piece of equipment, and they are very hard to come by right now for a variety of reasons, including the fact that there are a lot of supply chain problems right now in general, and street sweepers are in high demand by communities. So we haven't quite ironed out all the details, but I'm confident that we will be able to borrow the street sweeper at least on, we may, there's an actual, apparently an official schedule of pricing for leasing street sweepers between communities, but I'm confident that we'll be able to reach some arrangement for at least some limited number of days. That's not a long-term solution, but it should allow us to at least utilize a street sweeper in some of the most urgent areas of the city that need to be addressed as soon as possible.
Other discussion on cleaning up our Pontiac neighborhoods together. So you have on the agenda some important dates in terms of the free landfill days, April 23rd. Yeah, I didn't mess it up that time. April 23rd, April 30th, and May 7th on Collier Road, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Free opportunity for Pontiac residents. Any further discussion? Councilwoman James.
Just one comment, kind of piggybacking off of what the mayor said. There was a discussion in the latest parks, in the latest cleanup meeting, that the city will be sweeping there at Orchard Lake under the Phoenix Center, which is in pretty bad shape. But they are planning to do that in an early morning hour kind of thing and sweep that, blow all of that trash that's kind of accumulated. In addition to that, as part of the week of cleanups, on that Saturday, which is April the 23rd, we're looking for volunteers to help us clean the perimeter of that building that's kind of looking not the way we want our city to look. So if anyone is interested in coming and helping us out to clean up around the Phoenix Center, we're going to be doing that on Saturday morning. So if you've got a group that you'd like to come out and you'd like to get involved in the cleanup, that has been added to the schedule. So thank you.
Mayor Grimal.
I do want to be very clear, though, that garbage in and around the Phoenix Center is the responsibility of Ottawa Towers. Ottawa Towers has a 100-year lease to that parking garage, and again, that wasn't the doing of any of us up here. That was done by the previous administration. But as part of that 100-year lease, they have assumed the responsibility for properly maintaining that parking structure. And it is their responsibility to clean up garbage on their property. And this garbage in the tunnel along Orchard Lake is not in the public right-of-way. It is in the driveways that is part of the leased property that Ottawa Towers is responsible for. So I have told code enforcement to crack down on the lessee of Phoenix Center, that is to say Ottawa Towers, to clean it up. And I frankly would prefer to see volunteers cleaning up public property, not giving out handouts in the form of free time to a private company that has a 100-year lease to a facility and is responsible for cleaning up that facility. So we can talk offline, Councilwoman, but that is the responsibility of Ottawa Towers, and they have an obligation to properly take care of their property.
Councilman Nicholson.
Here, here. Apart from the community-wide cleanup in District 2 this last week, went through and submitted all of the larger dumping sites. We've had a few landlords putting things out in front of them. So what has happened is that code enforcement did respond. They did put out 48-hour notices. So those should be all taken care of at the beginning of this week. So thank you, code enforcement.
Any further discussion on cleaning up our Pontiac neighborhoods together? With that, we're now at discussion item E. We have a park in Pontiac that was awarded substantial grant funding by Oakland County Parks and Recreation Grant Program, and that's Maddie McKinney Hatchet Park, located in District 1. And that was something that came before Council and Mayor early in the year, but I want to give the floor to Mayor and Administration to help amplify the great news.
Thank you, President McGinnis. This is great news indeed. The total cost of this total renovation and investment in Maddie McKinney Hatchet Park is $500,000. $400,000 of that amount has been provided through private donations and private fundraising, leaving $100,000, which has been funded through Oakland County. And so this is really great news because we're seeing a huge investment in a city park without 1 cent of the amount coming from the city of Pontiac or our taxpayers. And with that, I'd welcome Ms. Borngesser to speak in any greater detail that she'd like to share.
Well, I think that about explains the grant award. This is a wonderful project and will bring a revitalized touch to a city park. You'll see some resolutions coming before you for the award acceptance and budget amendments to accept the revenue and all of those wonderful administrative things. In addition to this grant, we actually were awarded $30,000 for Crystal Lake Park as well today. So it's a good day for our city park.
What was that amount?
30,000.
All right.
Small but mighty.
Yeah, no, that's great. Congratulations. Amazing. Any further discussion? Councilwoman Rutherford.
Ms. Borngesser, I hope that you didn't. I was going to tell you thank you so much for the work that you did diligently for the park in District 1. I think it's important that we highlight our greatest assets, which is our people. And not just that, that park, when it's done, is going to be absolutely beautiful. And secondly, thank you for stopping me when I was walking in to formally let me know that another park in the best district there is, District 1, was awarded an additional $30,000. So if no one else has told you, they appreciate your hard work, dedication, and your proper to detail to the administration and to everybody on that side. Kudos to you. Thank you so much.
Other discussion? Mayor Grimel, do we know the target timeline for, or maybe Councilman James, the sort of ideal finish line target for Maddie McKinney Hatchet Park improvements?
I believe Ms. Borngesser knows, but perhaps Councilwoman James can share too if she's aware of the specific time frame.
I think it's later this year. I'm not sure.
Sorry, I'm just looking through.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the
notes
spot,
here.
but it's just helpful for the
There's so
community
many of
to
these projects, which is so
prepare
exciting.
accordingly, and we understand that construction schedules can change.
We don't have a construction schedule. That is going to be dictated in part by the partnership between the Pontiac Community Foundation and the city. But these funds that were awarded to the city proper have to be expended within 1 year of the signed grant agreement. So you'll see that the grant agreement will come through. We will sign an interlocal agreement in a similar fashion to the skate park interlocal agreement that you'll see on the agenda for another item. And then we'll go through the grant award process, we'll amend the budget, and at that point it'll be 1 year to spend those dollars. So the construction schedule, I will put my head together with Scott Stewart and Dustin from the Pontiac Community Foundation to get that before you as well when we submit the grant agreement.
Councilman James.
I know of the original schedule was for them to start in June, but if that has been extended, the original was June through like September, October for the work to be completed. What I'm not sure of if there's been an extension of that start date.
So I believe the start date was actually moved up. We did meet with the Pontiac Community Foundation last week, and they had let us know that initial steps would be taken starting in May. So
Okay.
It does not sound like it was pushed along farther into the year.
Okay, great. So we're looking at later this year, late September or October.
Fantastic. Any further discussion? Thank you again, and thank you very much. We are now at agenda items, unfinished business. We have a motion that was postponed for 1 week, so it's before us now. It's the motion to adopt the resolution to approve contract with National Career Group, LLC, for $75,000 to provide human resources contractual services to the city and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. Any discussion on this item, which is now back on the floor? Hearing no further discussion, we move on to speakers list exhausted, to roll call on approval of the resolution to approve the contract with National Career Group. Clerk Doyle.
Carrington.
No.
Goodman.
No.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
No.
Harker.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
4 yeas, 3 nays.
That motion carries, and that continues through the end of June. Is that right? The time frame for that?
That's right. It's through June 30th, is my understanding. Is that accurate, Deputy Mayor?
All right. With that, is there a motion to table indefinitely the resolution to approve the contract with GovHR for $101,320?
Is that
A motion to take from the table. It's essentially the backup or the alternative, but we won't be acting on it based upon the favorable outcome of the first one.
what are you talking about?
It's the second unfinished business item, resolution to approve the contract with GovHR. It was the backup HR firm.
Okay.
And so since that will no longer need to be pursued, we need to basically place on the table or to take off the table.
Okay.
Whatever language feels good to the clerk and legislative council, but we're making it go away forever.
Okay.
All right. I motion to amend the agenda to remove this item of the resolution to approve the contract with GovHR. Is there a motion?
Support.
All right, yeah, I moved it. You second it. So any further discussion on removing that item on the agenda? Hearing no discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Nicholson.
Yes.
Harker.
Yes.
Rutherford. Carrington.
Yes.
7 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. It's been removed from the agenda. Another item that's been postponed for 1 week is the adoption of the resolution to approve the implementation of the flock safety system within the city of Pontiac for a 12-month trial period. I have a potential amendment for the resolution, so I'll read it, and if it's to the pleasure of the council, then we can consider it. So it would, in the last, therefore, the final line, it would strike 12 months to instead read 6 months. and add this language. Further resolved, the City Council may vote to continue the trial period within City of Pontiac right-of-way for an additional 6 months after review of the initial 6-month trial period impact. And further resolved, the City Council requires monthly updates on the trial period provided in writing to council leadership and to the mayor. And further resolved, the city requires that only felony warrants that impacts a clear and present danger to health and safety of others be pursued. And further resolved, the city reserves the right to exit the trial and revoke the city right-of-way authorization at any point during the trial period. Is there a motion to amend the resolution?
So moved as amended.
All right, so there's a motion to amend the agenda to add that language, and seconded by moved by Nicholson, seconded by Rutherford. And then if the amendment language carries, we have the main resolution as amended before us for further discussion. But any discussion on this particular amendment?
I'm just not sure if it does, in fact, go far enough. You're saying that there won't be, that they're not going to use the felony except for extreme, but are they going to be using it for, I'd like for it to say what we want them to do, not necessarily what they should not be doing. Because the basic part of what the monitoring system does is reads the license plates and compares them to stolen vehicle data. So that is what you will continue to do, is to do that. And I'm not sure if that really covers what we had talked about, about felonies.
Well, we can amend this and then see if we want to, through the conversation about the resolution, add an additional.
Yeah,
therefore,
I'd
that
like
is
to
more
see it
explicit.
a little more defined.
Okay. Any further discussion on this amendment before us? Council President Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, I guess I'm kind of trying to understand exactly what the councilwoman, what type of felonies? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I want the amendment to pretty much lay out what we want the system to do. I want it to have a little more detail than what that amendment is stating.
So I guess I'm trying to find out what's that particularly you're referring to, so I can be in the same understanding that you are. Because I'm hearing people talk, but I'm not hearing particulars of how we want this system to be. So that's really why I was asking.
Yeah, well, we had talked about using the system for felonies. For being able to track people who had committed felonies. And we talked about that in relationship to, that we don't want to see people unnecessarily targeted. So I think that's one of the concerns that we have in the community, is